Why not try something smart to chew on? The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom, informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI, food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International for Monday, the 17th of November, 2025, and we are on to program number 1487 of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. In addition to 101.1 FM radio, you can also get us at our website, rcistlucia.com, and we are streaming live on Facebook. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International on Facebook. Please be sure to like and share that link as well with your friends and family. And if you don't use Facebook, you also have the option, of course, of YouTube as well. Now, we want to take a look back in time, and we go way back to the year 1558, where Elizabeth I, aged 25 at the time, ascended the throne upon the death of her half-sister, Queen Mary. In the year 1831, Ecuador and Venezuela separated from Gran Colombia. In 1855, on this day, David Livingstone became the first European to see Victoria Falls, what is now in Zambia and Zimbabwe. 1969, on this day, the Suez Canal in Egypt opened, linking the Mediterranean. Sorry, my apologies. 1869. I hope I said 18 and not 19. 1869, and the Suez Canal opened in Egypt, linking the Mediterranean and the Red Seas. 1922, on this day, the last Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, Mehmed VI, was expelled to Malta on a British warship. In 1970, on this day, Stanford Research Institute scientist Douglas Engelbart received the first patent for the computer mouse. We're going to send out some birthday greetings for today to Mr. Sherman Robinson. Happy birthday to you, Sherman. And we do hope that you're having an absolutely fantastic and blessed day. It's your cake day today, and we know you got a link on the cake. It's a part of your business, and so hopefully we'll have some wonderful enjoyments, wonderful desserts for later on. In the year, another person's birthday today, Tony Wilkinson, and he is celebrating his birthday. Happy birthday to you, sir. Hope it is an absolutely fantastic birthday celebration for you. And to Miss Cortella Pierre, happy birthday. Hope you're having a fantastic birthday as well. We now move on to our dish of the day.
Every bed in our hospitals tells a story of someone's mother, someone's brother, someone's friend. And when that story of care is complete, it's time for the next chapter, home. But too often, discharged patients are left waiting hours, days, weeks, sometimes months, not because they want to stay, but because no one comes. We understand life gets busy, but every extra day they wait means another patient, perhaps in pain, perhaps in crisis, can't get the bed they desperately need. So when the call comes that your loved one is ready, please be ready too. Pick them up, bring them back to the comfort of family, where healing truly continues. Because caring doesn't end at discharge, it continues with you. A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Now, we are today 2 weeks away from Decision Day here in St. Lucia with the impending December 1st poll in which the people of St. Lucia will decide who they will be sending to the House of Assembly, who will be forming the next government, who will be becoming the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, and of course, who will be getting into cabinet to effectively see about the affairs of the people for the next 5 or so years. Now, one of the issues, of course, that has certainly been a long-standing standard issue, so to speak, a staple on the plates of many elections since the year 2011, has been that of St. Jude Hospital. And of course, the reason for that has really been because of the unfortunate incident of the destruction by fire of the surgical building at St. Jude Hospital back on the 9th of September 2009, in which 3 individuals perished as a result. Never an official report, or as far as I'm aware, or explanation regarding the cause of the St. Jude fire, unfortunately. But certainly it then set into motion effectively a crisis. It still is certainly a sort of a crisis. And that, of course, is because St. Jude Hospital, which originally was built back in the 1940s during World War II as a military facility, a military hospital at cantonment in Vieux-Fort. Although some people may have also said that it was never really supposed to have been built in that location at all. It was actually supposed to have been in Trinidad, but ended up being established where it was. But either way, it was built as part of the focus of the American presence in St. Lucia during the period of the 1940s. And of course, the base, Beanfield, about 5,000 acres or so of land, which the Americans got from the British through compulsory acquisition. That was eventually handed back to the people of St. Lucia somewhere around 1961, I believe, during the premiership of Sir George Charles. Around that same time, there was lots of interest in the South and seeing the potential for development in the South. And the Americans also supported the establishment of the what is now the Vieux-Fort Comprehensive Secondary School, which in fact became the first public non-denominational secondary school established on the island. St. Jude, its establishment came a little later, and of course that was thanks to the tremendous effort of a Franciscan order, order of nuns out of the United States of America, the Sisters of Sorrowful Mother, and Sister Irma being the head of that mission here in St. Lucia. And through her work, leaving Castries, where they were originally doing a lot of work at Victoria Hospital in terms of training of nurses, and they in fact eventually set up a hospital in 1966 using what was still there left over in the cantonment area. And so the building was repurposed effectively for the same purpose, but this time for a public hospital for the people of St. Lucia. And it was not until 1992 or thereabouts when we saw a complete handover of the facility to the management of the state. I think there's an act of parliament establishing the St. Jude Hospital board, and they effectively are the management or the board of that facility. And so St. Jude pretty much always was treated somewhat differently than Victoria Hospital. Whereas Victoria was managed by the central government, St. Jude was always somewhat different. It was always a statutory entity, which to some degree certainly had to fend for itself, albeit it was receiving a government subvention on an annual basis, which of course was where most of the funds for its operations and management came from. It did also have to depend on the quality of its care to entice individuals to, in fact, utilize its premises. And so, of course, from 1966 up until 1992, not very much changed in terms of the footprint of St. Jude Hospital, albeit, of course, over that period of time, we certainly did see a considerable increase in the population of St. Lucia. And so currently, St. Jude effectively captures a catchment of roughly about 70,000 individuals who would see that facility as the closest secondary care facility to them. Persons who are living roughly about half an hour away from that facility, from Dennery right across to Soufrière. And so St. Jude has been a very important part of the people of the South. It would be, and of course, as hospitals tend to be, because those are the places where individuals go to first find birth and life, of course, and they're very important from that perspective. And of course, this is also a place where, unfortunately, persons go towards the end of their lives to be able to sustain life as long as possible. And in some instances, of course, it is also a place where individuals close their eyes for the final time. And so hospitals definitely have a very emotional part of our existence. It's not a place we necessarily want to go to, of course, because of that nature. But it is certainly very, very important in our lives and in continuing lives and keeping people alive. And of course, the need for that facility in the South is certainly very critical. You'd recall the island before the St. Jude fire was in fact undergoing a process of universal health care. And there were a number of different studies looking at the requirements based on the population, based on the health conditions of the population, based on the size of the population, what a healthcare system would look like for St. Lucia. And in a country like St. Lucia, most times a country of our size would probably have just one health facility. That is, one secondary level health facility. In other words, one general hospital. And that is primarily because we have a pretty small population of about 180,000 people. And you can look to Barbados, for example, with a population of about 275,000 people. And there really is one principal general hospital, publicly run general hospital in Barbados, that of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Bridgetown. In fact, even right now, there are plans afoot to expand that facility. And so there was, in fact, a consideration regarding this matter as to first indicating, well, how many hospital beds do we actually require? And that's usually a measure that is used within the context of healthcare to give a sense as to the extent of care that is needed. Not to say that, of course, a hospital is only about beds. That is a thing of the past. Hospitals are far more complex in this regard right now in terms of the other equipment and facilities and support systems, labs and diagnostic equipment and other amenities that have to go into supporting a hospital today. But the measure that quite often is used is the idea of the bed, right? The hospital bed. And even that, one should also make mention, has different understandings, different definitions as to what is a full hospital bed but other things sometimes are classed as hospital beds as well, but may not be totally so. And so there's a terminology that is quite often used in terms of a census bed. Is the bed really for overnight stay in the premises? And of course, not all hospital beds necessarily are for that purpose. Of course, you have some for resuscitation, for triage, for observation. Very, very different in that sense. But that is generally the metric that is utilized. And I think in the case of St. Lucia, when a number of these studies were being done under universal healthcare and the aim towards achieving universal healthcare, at the time, the idea was that St. Lucia needed somewhere in the vicinity of 220, 225 beds on island in all the facilities. And of course, within a context like that, it might have made actually sense to actually have perhaps one centralized general hospital. But of course, the nature of our island is pretty different in the case of compared to, say, Barbados. In the case of Barbados, you can roughly get to Bridgetown from whether you're in the north in St. Lucie or in the east in St. Philip, or those furthest extremes of Barbados. You could roughly get to Bridgetown, where the Queen Elizabeth Hospital is located, in about 35 to 40 minutes. It's a very different situation, of course, in the case of St. Lucia, given our topography and the circuitous nature of our road network. That, of course, is not possible. It takes an hour for somebody to safely get from Vieux-Fort to Castries, even longer if you were coming from Choiseul, which is perhaps the furthest extreme away from Castries. And so that consideration obviously means that certainly there would be a need for a facility in the south of the island to be able to support the population in the south. And so effectively, we have two, you could call them hospital or health districts in some sense, or catchment areas, which would effectively be servicing this hospital. And so it has certainly been a major part of the understanding of our healthcare system that we would certainly need a facility like St. Jude. It was, of course, even more necessary back in the 1960s when the roads were even worse than they are today in terms of the number of bends and the travel times between areas. But up to a point like today, certainly it still is vital. And of course, the reality as well with the presence of the international airport down in Vieux-Fort, the need for a health facility in cases of emergency, of course, would be something would be most useful in that regard. So, of course, the fire came, and the fire put in train a significant amount of change in respect of St. Jude Hospital. Of course, the facility had to move to the George Odlum Stadium, which only had about 60,000 square feet of usable space. And even when it first, in fact, moved across, they were only using about half of that space, which was on the west wing of the stadium. Later on, of course, it was expanded to utilize the east wing as well. But at the end of it all, certainly still not an ideal arrangement, a makeshift arrangement at best. And certainly the staff of St. Jude Hospital have labored on and have certainly been able to keep a standard of care, which I think is commendable under all circumstances, given what they have been having to deal with. And so, of course, this moment of a handover of the new St. Jude, as it is effectively, is certainly a very, very poignant and emotional time for many individuals who have certainly been working in conjunction with this project for a very, very long time now, 16 years. Hospitals, depending on where you are, of course, from the perspective of design, conceptualization, to getting approvals, to actual tendering, to bidding, to actual construction, to then moving into the point of commissioning can easily take about 5 to 8 years. And that is expected in most instances, in most countries, even with great resources, because it generally requires a lot of pre-planning. In the case of St. Jude Hospital, there was not that opportunity to do very much of any pre-planning because of the fire, and because, of course, this ended up being such a catastrophe that it meant that the entire hospital had to be effectively gutted, reconstructed, and because, of course, it was an aged building, aged facilities, many of the materials that were used were now not acceptable in a modern building, particularly the use of asbestos. And so clearly a significant overhaul had to be done on the go with respect to St. Jude. And so we certainly saw a bit of that. We saw within the context of St. Jude plans made and plans being changed and plans being added on because effectively it was a very fluid type of situation in terms of conceptualizing what was really needed, what was really wanted with respect to St. Jude Hospital. I obviously it's taken longer than 8 years, and of course part of that has been effectively the politics of St. Jude. And we saw exactly what happened in respect of a project that was effectively 90% complete at a point where it had pretty much equipment on order, equipment on island, a lot of the resources to be able to complete the facility were present, flooring present, all the paints present, all the electrical work, the electrical materials present to be able to complete the facility. And then, of course, a decision taken at that 11th hour to effectively stop a project that was funded, that was mobilized fully, and to go back to the drawing board at that sensitive time, certainly, in my humble opinion, remains not just folly, but one of the greatest errors of judgment in respect of any project in St. Lucian history. Because one could have said, you could have easily decided, you know what, okay, you may identify certain concerns, you may identify certain variations you may want to do, but you have a project which has already gone through 7 years of work, issues in terms of not having the finances. Now that you have the financing, now that you had the materials already on order, equipment already on order, some of the buildings completely finished, and to then move to say, hey, we are going to start it all over, it certainly was completely ill-advised. Because you could have certainly completed what you had, and you could have, if you so chose, you could have added on. You could have expanded over time. That's what the whole point of phasing of a project is. But you certainly had the opportunity to ensure that a hospital could have been finished by 2016, 2017 with respect to St. Jude Hospital. So here we are now, effectively 8 years on, now looking at this handover of this facility so that it can now be commissioned. And certainly we should have not been where we are now. We should have been far, far more advanced in respect of a hospital already operating in this island, and we should have been at that point probably easily about 8 years ago. And so, yes, it's taken so long. And yes, I think there is a certain level of urgency in respect of commissioning the hospital at this time. We certainly cannot afford the situation that befell the OKEU, because OKEU was effectively at a point that it could have been opened by around 2016, 2017. And we waited another 3 years effectively, only because you saw the situation with respect of COVID-19 and the need for a respiratory hospital with Victoria. So they were effectively forced to go ahead and finally occupy OKEU. That is certainly not going to be the case, no doubt, as far as I can tell, in respect with St. Jude Hospital. And a commissioning is something that takes a little time, but once you've got the equipment in place, once you've actually done all the necessary training, once you've done all the necessary testing, you could probably do that within 3 months, 3 to 4 months. And I think it is exactly what should be part of the commissioning plan, which I'm not privy to, but it would certainly be, in my estimation, the intent of the individuals, because certainly to get individuals into a better facility, a facility that is easily 3 to 3.5 times the size of what they have available right now in terms of floor area, and a facility that, of course, is designed fit for purpose, is certainly very, very important for all of us and for the healthcare of our country. Let's wait and see, of course. And no doubt there will be lots of wonderful stories to come in terms of once you actually see more patients coming into St. Jude Hospital. Of course, as of now, as part of the handover, principally the administrative aspects of St. Jude Hospital are what is moving across first, as well as other services like the laundry. And the idea, of course, of the laundry is that right now, in any case, St. Jude Hospital is outsourcing laundry services. And so with this modern laundry that they now have, they, in fact, will be able to do their own, wash their own linen in their own space. And certainly that is one of the early aspects that is going to be utilized. And it's, of course, can be an how should I put it? It can be a service that is used even though it is off-site for the time being, away from the stadium. And of course, some of the outpatient services like physiotherapy, like dialysis, are certainly some of those that are also looking to be already shifted across. In addition to those, of course, later on, as the equipment begins to come in, and we saw some of that already happening as of last week in terms of the medical equipment, no doubt we'll begin seeing the shifting of even more services in that regard, especially in some of the support services, the kitchen, for example, the laboratory, the central sterile services as well, and then the likely move of the inpatient services into St. Jude Hospital. We'll be speaking a little bit more about St. Jude in just a bit, but I think we're a little over time here in our dish of the day. So we're going to take in our weather report, and then, of course, when we come back, talk a little bit more about St. Jude, and, of course, also take in your calls, questions, and comments.
This has been The Daily Dish.
Every bed in our hospitals tells a story of someone's mother, someone's brother, someone's friend. And when that story of care is complete, it's time for the next chapter, home. But too often, discharged patients are left waiting hours, days, weeks, sometimes months, not because they want to stay, but because no one comes. We understand life gets busy, but every extra day they wait means another patient, perhaps in pain, perhaps in crisis, can't get the bed they desperately need. So when the call comes that your loved one is ready, please be ready too. Pick them up, Bring them back to the comfort of family, where healing truly continues. Because caring doesn't end at discharge, it continues with you. A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs.
And it's now time for Weather News, brought to you by Island Style.
Last year, boy, problems to get shipment of tiles in time for Christmas. This year, Island Style has enough tiles in stock to cover the whole of St. Lucia. And with our Christmas sale starting now, every tile is on sale. Island Style has massive stock, the widest variety, and the very best sale prices on quality tiles and natural stone in St. Lucia. Great deals on beautiful bathroom faucets, vanities and fixtures, tiling tools and accessories. Don't fall for no gimmicks anywhere else. Island Style's annual Christmas sale is unbeatable. Tiles for miles. Deals as far as the eye can see. Start your car, ride your bike, hop on a bus, and hurry down to Island Style Town and Bath now. Castries, Rodney and Viewful. Check Facebook for more details.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And the forecast for St. Lucia valid for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from between the east, northeast, and east near 17 miles per hour or 28 kilometers per hour. Weather fair to partly cloudy skies with some scattered showers, which may be heavy in some areas, and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. Residents and motorists are in areas prone to flooding and landslides should be vigilant and exercise caution. Forecast for the Lesser Antilles. Partly cloudy to cloudy skies with scattered showers. Which may be locally heavy and isolated thunderstorms. Your tropical weather outlook. Moist and unstable associated with a low-level trough will continue to cause cloudy periods with scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms over the Lesser Antilles during the next 24 hours. Tropical cyclone formation is not expected over the tropical Atlantic during the next 7 days. And that is your weather report, brought to you by Island Style.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Last year, boy, problems of tiles in time for Christmas. This year, Island Style has enough tiles in stock to cover the whole of St. Lucia. And with our Christmas sale starting now, every tile is on sale. Island Style has massive stock, the widest variety, and the very best sale prices on quality tiles and natural stone in St. Lucia. Great deals on beautiful bathroom faucets, vanities and fixtures, tiling tools and accessories. Don't fall for no gimmicks anywhere else. Island Style's annual Christmas sale is unbeatable. Tiles for miles. Deals as far as the eye can see. Start your car, ride your bike, hop on a bus, and hurry down to Island Style Town and Bath now. Castries, Rodney and Viewful. Check Facebook for more details.
And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. WhatsApp number, it is 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. Now, we've been speaking about St. Jude Hospital, of course, on the heels of the handover ceremony which occurred yesterday afternoon at the forecourt of St. Jude Hospital at Cantonment V4, effectively marking a very important milestone in terms of the completion of the buildings, the infrastructure being in place, then effectively handing it over to the operational entities who in fact will have responsibility for the whole process of commissioning of that hospital. I do believe. Oh, sorry, it looks like we lost that call. But again, the number to call in is 4523046. Well, yes, as we were saying, St. Jude Hospital, 16 years on and many administrations on. We saw a period from about April, well, if you want to start from September of 2009 up until November of 2011. That was the initial undertaking of rebuilding of St. Jude under the Stephenson King-led administration. Let's go to the phone lines at this time. Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom. How are you doing, sir?
Not too bad.
Wonderful.
Now, something I want to ask you, Mr. George. Sharon Shatsney is saying St. Jude is an old hospital, 80 years old. And when he comes in, want to give the people of Vivotan what is on that man's mind.
What is on his mind? I don't want to be a mind reader, but if I were to take a guess, based on, or not even really a guess, but if I were to look at what he has done in the past in respect of St. Jude, I would only assume that his intention is to go back to the quote-unquote south wing or the box. I suppose
back to the box.
Yeah, I suspect that would be the plan because remember, caller, the box was never needed.
Yeah,
the box was never needed.
So
there was a hospital that was perfectly structurally fine. They effectively created a narrative to create this impression that the hospital had so many flaws that it could never have worked as a hospital, all right? That was the impression that was given. And they chose not to finish it. They chose effectively to let a lot of the material effectively go to waste. There was equipment already on island, the laundry equipment, the kitchen equipment. Who knows what has happened to that equipment? Whose hands it ended up in? What, was it discarded? How was it discarded? To whom it was discarded. And then you had things like, materials like the paints, that were taken, the flooring, when they went to certain premises of private suppliers. Remember that whole thing with the police?
Yeah, Guy Joseph come
police,
right by
right?
near where I live there.
Yeah, going around.
All the paint. And what happened to this paint? What happened to this equipment?
So when you look so when you look at how much money was spent on St. Jude up until that point, which was about $98 million, I think nearly about $40 million of that was actually equipment and paint, supplies that had been purchased that was on island waiting to be brought in for the completion, right? And a lot of that was lost. So when you talk about waste, I mean, you heard it yesterday. I'm not sure if you heard just the air conditioning system alone, $10 million down the drain. Thankfully, in respect of the generator, I think from what I understand, there was an original generator that had been purchased. It was left there, but I think based on the inspection, it's still going to be utilized as a backup, although they've purchased 2 additional backup generators, but they'll still have this one as a sort of a backup of the backup. So at least there's going to be some use of that. But there's a lot of money. There were buildings that were demolished. In fact, there was even on one of the buildings that was demolished, there was a solar PV system on the dialysis building.
There was 2 brand new buildings.
I have no idea what happened to that.
That was demolished. That cost $7 million.
So when we want to talk about the waste of St. Jude.
What a waste.
That is where we've got to start talking about waste. Yes, certainly. I mean, there were issues of waste even before that, in respect of the project when it was going on. There were some things that were changed. When there was a first contractor, there were some issues there because there were some design changes and what have you. But it was nowhere near the kind of loss of material and I mean, this is where really, if we wanted to do a full tabulation of St. Jude and where we've lost money, that's where we have to look at. I mean, one of the things I know for sure that had been done was with the diagnostic equipment. The diagnostic equipment was on order from General Electric, I mean, that was over $7 million worth of equipment. And I believe maybe whatever deposits there, I'm hoping that, of course, that they can be, still utilized to the benefit of St. Jude Hospital. Go ahead, caller. You were going to say something? Sorry.
It's in the nature of the man. Nature of the man. Look at Costedit Strip.
Yeah.
Something that was almost brand new. And he just take it down to pieces. And he had AMAC, the Parliament, to take Parliament down, the print tree down, Shed 6, the wharf down.
Yeah, I mean...
Smashing. He have it in his nature. So now when he's saying he's going to give the people of Rayford a brand new hospital, what's on his mind? And that's what the people in St. Lucia, if they don't want no trouble in St. Lucia, don't vote that man. He's saying he make a mistake, but there is no mistake. It's in his nature. St. Lucia, look out.
I don't know that he said that he's made a mistake. Has he really admitted to any mistakes? I don't know, caller. He said he's a changed man.
Nothing.
He said he's a changed man.
He make a mistake.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I missed that part where he actually admitted to whatever mistake he's admitting to. But yeah, what I do want to say though, caller, that the principle of demolition is not a problem, provided that you've done some kind of cost-benefit analysis in terms of what is there right now, what is it valued, what's the value of what you have, right? And what you're going to be replacing it with, if in fact you can do that. Now, there are certain decisions that you have to make. In some instances, based on historic value, you may decide not to demolish a structure. You may decide to repurpose the structure. In some instances, you may figure there's no, it doesn't have that kind of value, but it may have a physical value, a cost, so you've got to do some level of analysis to decide how to move forward when you're doing those types of projects. And what is clear...
Look at that, Mr. George. When Philip J. Pierre want to do something, he hold his parliament, he hold his meeting with all his members. Mm-hmm. So what happened to the members that Alan Chasney, in parliament? Do he talk to them before he does rough, clumsy decision?
Well, I cannot speak for all of them, but I think we've heard of late some of them actually speaking out. I mean, of course, we've heard of Mr. King, Stevenson King, and he has indicated what occurred during his time as Minister of Infrastructure under Alan Chasney and the levels of interference that were apparent from Mr. Chasney and other ministers. We've also heard recently from the former Minister of Youth Development and Sport, who has now thrown his support behind the St. Lucia Labour Party, Mr. Edmund Estefan, and we've heard his characterization of this sort of situation. So, I mean, I really don't know. I mean, Cabinet is somewhat of a closed shop. It's a meeting in confidence, but certainly we're getting some sense in terms of the approach of Mr. Chasney, how he goes about his business. And I don't know. I mean, either way, though, the important thing is not even just about the cabinet, but you also have to listen to the technocrats. You've got to listen to the individuals who are the project managers. You've got to at least hear them out, at least consider what they are saying and make decisions based on their merit and not on other agendas which appear to be more significant in his judgment than actually getting a project done. Because you know what? I think Mr. Chasney would have put a very strong case had he completed St. Jude back when he was Prime Minister. And I'm not talking about the box, which he came at in 2019 to start doing and is not even halfway there. I'm speaking about if he had just merely completed the project that he had started, he would have been able to have said, hey, look, we've given you a working, functioning hospital. And then say, you know what, we're going to do a one-up. we're gonna try adding on something else. Maybe he could have then
make sense.
he could have then
That
come
would
and
make
said,
sense.
well, we're gonna be bringing Health City Cayman to do another phase, another wing, or whatever he wanted to call it. But the way he's approaching it clearly was ill advised, and we have seen the waste that has resulted. We've seen the loss of time. We've seen the loss of opportunity in respect of St. Jude Hospital. So it's unfortunate now that, of course, he's seeing a completed building, a building that they're just waiting to bring in the equipment
That's
in.
a wonderful building.
And
the architect is great.
Well, I remember
I
calling.
haven't seen it yet, but
Yes.
what I've seen on the TV,
Right.
it is a great work.
Yeah.
When I can see you, would I see you tomorrow?
Sorry?
Can I come in tomorrow?
Oh, well, tomorrow no, because we actually have some people coming in from the National Consumer Association. But I would say either Thursday or Friday.
Okay.
Thursday or Friday. I'm not sure which one works for
Thursday
you.
or Friday. Okay,
but we can confirm with that one, definitely.
Yeah, okay, we could confirm.
Thanks a lot.
Anyway, good afternoon.
Nice
Mr.
hearing
George.
of you.
Have
Of
a
course.
nice day.
Have a good one, of course. And
Yeah.
we were just speaking to one of our regular callers, Mr. Cyril Francis, and we thank him, of course, for his continued support. Of course, the number to call in is 452-3046. And just to speak a little bit about what is on offer here in terms of St. Jude Hospital. Of course, as I mentioned, it is a secondary care facility. The maternity department is a 14-bed maternity unit. There are 3 labor delivery rooms. There is also a dedicated theater for cesareans, an operating theater within the maternity, so you wouldn't have to go over to the surgical department for C-sections. That was a major improvement there in terms of the maternity department. There's also a NICU, a neonatal ICU, which has 6 beds, or if you like, incubators. Of course, and that is in close proximity to the maternity unit, so very good adjacency in terms of that. So in terms of preemies, for example, or complicated births, and you certainly do have the NICU that will be available at St. Jude Hospital. There is a pediatrics department with 13 beds. There is a medical department, an inpatient medical department of 15 beds, and that includes a male wards as well as a female ward. There is also a surgical, before we move into surgical, those which I've mentioned thus far are all within the east wing of the St. Jude Hospital. There's also a special care department. So within that department, you actually have upwards of 14 beds, and these are primarily private beds, private units. So for persons who actually want to get a private room, there is in fact a special care unit for that. But there are also some semi-private rooms as well, which have 2 beds per room. Of course, the standard that is generally being utilized is that in the multi-bed rooms, you have usually about 4 beds sharing 1 bathroom. But of course, in the private, you've got your own ensuite bathroom. Then if we move on to the ground floor of the St. Jude Hospital, that is where you would have your reception area. There's a very large reception area, which allows for, I think, about 80 seats within that area. Just off it, there's a nurses triage area for your outpatient services. So if you, in fact, can come to the outpatients unit, and there is, in fact, also a triage there, which is useful because it can effectively complement what is available in the accident and emergency unit of St. Jude Hospital. Then, of course, you've got on that ground floor your outpatient units, and there are a number of them, including the dental, excuse me, the dental clinic, the ophthalmology clinic. There is an oncology clinic, a urology clinic. There's an obs and gynae clinic. There's an orthopedic and general surgery clinic, an internal medicine and cardiology clinic, as well as a pediatric clinic and I think I left out one, and that is the ENT clinic. So all those outpatient clinics are on the ground floor of the East Wing. Within that facility as well, you've got space for counseling and social services. There's also a meeting and training room for staff there. Of course, staff facilities also provided within that. There's a pharmacy for handling dispensing of pharmaceuticals. You've got as well the business administration unit just off the reception area as well. So that effectively is the ground floor of the East Wing. If you move on across into the central wing of St. Jude Hospital, in the front of it, which is immediately behind where you had the screen for the ceremony that was happening yesterday, is the Accident and Emergency Department for St. Jude Hospital. And on that same ground level of the Accident and Emergency, you then also have the Medical Imaging Department. So within that department, you would then have all your services, including things like your X-rays, your CT scan, fluoroscopy. Those are all within that space to the rear of or the north of the Accident and Emergency Department. There's also on that same level the Central Sterilization Department. So that, of course, is really important in sterilization of goods and ensuring, because, of course, sanitation is a very, very important aspect of healthcare. And so that is, there's a separate section that just deals with that. And as well, another section dealing in that same surgical ground floor level, dealing with the laboratory. Let's go into another call at this point. Good afternoon. Welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Hi, good afternoon.
How are you doing, caller?
I'm fine, thank you.
I think I heard you earlier on winning something, or you were answering some questions.
Where?
I think it was on Kiss FM.
Oh, I like history.
Good stuff.
I like the history.
Good show, good show.
It's every morning. It's the history of St. Lucia.
Ah, okay, all right,
yes,
good
know,
stuff.
so, and goes all the way back to, so I love questions, a lot of quiz questions.
Wonderful.
So the fauna, the flora, just name it. That's what they do every morning.
Very nice, indeed.
Yeah, I want to say the building that houses Tapio Hospital, wasn't it a hotel before?
Oh yes, certainly. It was the Tapio Reef Hotel. Yes.
And don't you house hospitals in building, except in a disaster when you have that military large tent? Because I'm still hearing that thing about you giving the people a building and not a hospital. But to me, it's the equipment and everything inside of the building that makes it a hospital. Because of the last night, I heard Kaka saying about when they come in, they're going to give people a complete hospital instead of a building. But as far as I'm concerned, a hospital is in a building. So why all that?
Well, we have not yet managed virtual hospitals. So yeah, you do need a physical premises to have it in, certainly, and that's a very important aspect of it.
You must.
I mean, you have to have the hospital itself, the building itself, the building services, plus the medical equipment, right, which is vital as well. Plus all the other support equipment that goes into running on, because I mean, we think about a hospital and we think, yes, it's a medical, but then there's a lot of other support services that have to also be in place to ensure that it is running well. I mean, even the well-being, the psychological well-being of places. In modern hospitals, you usually have some sort of a room, a little chapel, a space where people can meditate. That's, gardens where people can actually spend some time outside. And when you look at St. Jude, what is the whole plan for St. Jude? That's exactly what they're trying to do. There's a chapel there as well.
Yeah,
the chapel aspect has not yet. They're treating that as a sort of a separate project. I think
but
because
wasn't it built? The chapel was built?
Not completely built. No, it's still. I mean, the walls are up, but then they still have to. For that building in particular, they still have to do the roof and outfitting of the building. But I think. They obviously have to look at the cost aspect of it, I suspect. Yeah, it was a very fancy chapel.
The very first time I visited St. Jude's, that was when I was very young, and they had the chapel was there, this hospital, you go by. They gave us a walkthrough to that whole hospital, and the last time, I think it was maybe about 2007, I went down there. I went to see an eye specialist down there, and everything. So I don't understand why now you were saying that we still don't have a hospital. We just have a building.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we have a building and we have, the hospital has taken over the building, right? So effectively they've begun occupying that building, and they will continue to occupy more and more, or more and more spaces will become active.
Yes.
As time goes by, as they begin installing the equipment and testing the relevant equipment. So I think, like, for example, thus far, just last week they got equipment for the laboratory as well as for the central sterilization services. So they would be equipping those, and then no doubt they will be trying to see testing, whatever has to be tested, the training that has to be done. Because also what you have, remember, is that you have workers in a facility who may be using certain types of equipment right now, and they're now moving on to new equipment. There is quite often changes.
Train them all over
There's
again.
training that has to occur. I mean, you're hearing it. A good example was that you were hearing about the laundry equipment, and you saw, I think, a video from a gentleman who was one of the supervisors within the laundry, and he was speaking to how modern the equipment that is there now.
Never
seen it before. And he now, obviously, they've had to train and in those instances, you've got to bring back quite often you bring the supplier specialists to come in to do the training, to make sure that it's working and everything is in order in that
even
regard.
The kitchen equipment.
Well, the other thing too, even look at what happened to us with respect to OKEU. There was equipment that came down. There's equipment that came down, and a lot of the equipment was not properly. It was not kept in a proper environment. There's some equipment that once you put it on, it has to be kept at a certain temperature. There's certain environmental controls that have to exist, right? Now, if you're not doing that, you're going to end up, and I think this is what happened to the MRI at St. Jude Hospital, at OKEU. So here we spent millions of dollars on an MRI, and we were not able to utilize that MRI. So what is happening is that you're going to be seeing over a period of time, all these various systems are going to be coming on stream at St. Jude Hospital. And I think Dr. Kenny Anthony made the point, in fact, it was a very good point, that you don't really do an opening of a functioning hospital. It's going to be very difficult to do that. And he did make the point that in the case of OKEU, it was never there was never that opportunity in any case, because it went straight into the commissioning and it just, obviously continued. I felt if it wasn't for the COVID, OKEU would have never been open, not until that new hospital in Zip. You see, the other point too, caller, the other point that is important in respect of all that we're talking about is that a hospital is also about the people who work there. And you're talking about a larger facility. With a larger facility, you're speaking about more nurses. You need more staff. You need more. You actually have to look at your staffing complement, and then decide: do we actually have all the necessary staff to be able to run all these various units and systems?
Yeah.
All right, and that's So if you're getting new equipment, do you have the staff, the biotechnicians, the biomedical team to be able to support it? Do you need to bring on an additional radiologist? Do you need to? There are a lot of things that you've got to look at that have to go into the planning of ensuring that the facility is running. And that was one of the issues with respect to OKEU.
Okay, yes.
Right?
Nothing was actually planned. They just did they just rush everything.
Well, I think there was a plan for quite some time, if
yeah,
OKEU.
I know there was a transition plan with Dr. King, but
the
dropped.
The desire to go ahead with the shift also, because, and this is something that I think the Minister for Health, Mr. Jean-Baptiste, has mentioned, that the cost of running OKEU is tremendously larger, greater than what it used to cost to run Victoria Hospital. So you can't expect to be running, and the same, I have no doubt, is going to occur with respect to St. Jude.
Yeah.
Right? The cost of running the new St. Jude is quite possibly going to be more than what it is going to cost to run the old one. And albeit there may be opportunities for
it's more
savings.
modern and everything, so.
But there may be opportunities for savings if they in fact are doing certain things like maybe solar PV, and maybe the design, if it's well designed, maybe the better insulation of the space. Hopefully there might be less demand on some spaces, but I'm pretty certain if you're talking about a larger space, more cooling is going to be necessary. The costs are going to go up. And a lot of different areas, the costs are going to go up. So it is going to be a factor within that context that we've got to also be willing to take on. That if we're speaking about a new facility, yes, but it means that a lot of other things have to go in to ensuring that facility is going to be run properly.
So that since they had just the handing over of the facility to Ministry of Health, when will there be an actual opening? Is it after everything has been phased in?
Well, when you say an opening, what I would tell you is that
because as far as I
you're going to be seeing a sort of a phased shift, and I think that's what's effectively already happening. So some of the units are already beginning to operate on site at a cantonment. So like the
because
administration. Sorry?
Physiotherapies, dialysis, the
right. So like dialysis, for example.
Outpatient.
That's a very good example. Dialysis is an outpatient service. There's a 25 chair, dialysis unit. And that is something that could, in fact, certainly, I think they're planning on, if it has not yet started, I don't know it precisely, but that is one of the units that they want to actually get going. First and foremost, physiotherapy is another one.
Yes.
Right, that is already in train for use. The kitchen.
Outpatient. They also said outpatient.
Yes. Well, the outpatient. Right. So the outpatient services, the clinics, those would also quite likely come on stream very soon too. So your dental clinic, but I mean, that is, of course, also pending equipment. So once they can put in equipment for some of these clinics, then yes, they can then begin bringing them on. And I would assume that the last move would then be your inpatients, right? Okay. So your inpatient wards would then come on, which is the most sensitive persons to be able to move. How that is done, of course, because you literally have patients in already in spaces, so you're going to have to physically look at moving patients. That
patients you may have in ICU.
That takes a certain level of logistics. All of those things have to be very, very well executed, right? And so it's not something that's just going to happen overnight. But the important thing is that it's already beginning to happen, and I would think that the commissioning plan is going to spell out how quickly. I mean, I think the biggest delay, caller, of course, which is something that the government has had our other contractors had no control over, is the matter of the equipment, right?
Yes,
This is
it's
not being
taking time.
manufactured here. It's a lot of it is coming from Asia, from North America. We've seen the challenges. I think Mr. Kajada spoke to the matter of the port of Kingston, which of course is the transshipment port for most of the Caribbean, and the delays there due to Hurricane Melissa,
Yes,
and how that has
was a
impacted.
problem.
So these things these are force
No
majeure. You've got no control over these
Yes.
these things, but the buildings are ready to take in all the equipment once the equipment is on island and can be installed. So I mean, I don't know how.
But I think the most important thing was having that hospital completed and at least people know for a fact now that they can.
Yeah.
That's the main thing is having.
Because you remember, caller, what the plan was on the eve of the 2021 general election.
Yes.
The plan was that you didn't have anything to show, and let's try to spend $70 million doing the ground floor. That's because we couldn't finish the whole thing, right? So let's try to do something to just finish the ground floor. So in other words, in 2021, we did not deliver on the building. There was no building, right? All you had was the superstructure, the cladding. On the inside, all the services were not in place. All the electrical, there was a vast amount of work.
But at the press conference, I heard the former Prime Minister said over 400 million was spent on that hospital,
But within that 400 million, he's including what he spent too that he did not have spent. Did he include that?
No.
But it does. It does. That's my point. That 400 million that he's quoting, right?
Yeah.
Again, look at from 2009 until 2011 and 16, right?
Yes.
$98 million was spent,
Yes.
right? Over that 7-year period. From 2016 until 2021, they spent in the region of 120 million, right?
Yes.
So that brings us up to roughly about 220.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we still have to hear the figure. The other thing that I need to clarify, the figure that they are using, right? They're quoting a $200 million loan from the Saudis, but they're also not appreciating that money is not only for the hospital,
for the stadium.
That includes monies for the stadium rehabilitation as well. So that $200 million figure is not the cost of the upgrades that we're seeing. And the other thing that we should also point out is that even that money that was spent, that $120 million that was spent, that doesn't include any. In terms of the medical equipment, I mean, it's not incorporated there, right? No. So that's a major cost as well. And I think we certainly do need to get a proper accounting at the end of the day to find out what is the final cost for bringing it up to this point.
They're not saying how much they spend, but they're saying that that this government spent like over 400.
Yeah, but that's not true. That's not true. I mean that's completely untrue.
And I noticed the other case now is for the airport, the Hiwana airport. Right now, I heard Mr. Titus Purvis talk about this is supposed to be the legacy of our children, and to see that we had such
an airport is the legacy of our children. Our children. Oh, okay. I don't know that I'd want that to be. I was
really shocked to hear him say
legacy.
That. Yes, because I mean what he's saying that they came with this government came in and found everything there for the airports. Mm-hmm. The what do you call something on the whatever, not tires, whatever.
That sounds like a legacy of debt. That sounds like that's what that sounds like, caller. I don't know how that could be a legacy.
That's what
to suggest that there's going to be.
This could have been the legacy of our China airport that was meant to, just the idea of what the airport would be was what he's saying that should have never been stopped. All the piling was taken off. At a meeting here, I heard him talking about it. So I'm saying, but what is the airport have to do with the legacy of our children to come in? On the airport we have right now.
That's a very unfortunate legacy that we're seeing there right now, I can tell you. And that's.
I think a lot of questions need to be asked of these people, and and to place facts from fiction, and because you just say so much being said out there, so much, and you have people actually buying into the thing, 'cause they don't know. They just saying figures have been spread set out there,
Of course.
and all sorts of things, and you just take it in, and they run and with it. I
Of
think
course.
it's time that they put those people, they group together, like the amount of money that was spent, the engineers, audit, a full thing. Put both of those people together, the whole people that run the hospital. I think lots of questions, because these people cannot be there now saying all sorts of things, making it look as if there was a lot of corruption, there was a lot of this, there was a lot of that, but they had their part to play too, and they would never part of it.
Clearly, they've washed their hands clean and make it
Totally clean, like and
But
this is
that-
not right.
Of course not, caller.
Yes.
Thanks very much for that contribution, of
welcome.
course. And we out of time already here at the lunchroom. We do hope that you can join us again tomorrow for another program. And of course, in the meantime, do have yourself a very blessed day. I'm your host, Calix George Jr., saying goodbye.